Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or you're listening on the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations. They are both free to download. They are both free to use. You can listen to not just this show, but any of the shows on KVOR and Extra Sports 1300, and they are both sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the program. And I'd love to get your thoughts at 719-247-1313. You will hear from the new men's basketball coach at Air Force, Joe Crispin, who met the unwashed masses of media like me just earlier this afternoon. And we have a question up about an old friend of the Denver Nuggets that are not friend, adversary that I'd like your input on. But we start with the Colorado Avalanche. And I genuinely feel for Calgary. I do. Because they caught the Colorado Avalanche at the absolute worst time. Okay, this was an Avs team that had won a handful of games in a row. They were feeling really good about themselves as they were, pushing towards the finish line to clinch the Central Division, the number one seed. The power play's improving. All of this kind of stuff is going on. And then they hit a wall. They stubbed their toe, I guess would be the better way to put it, against Winnipeg over the weekend. Just not really like them. They had just beaten Winnipeg the other day. But it happens. Right? Everybody has an off night every once in a while, even a team like the Avalanche. And that was their off night the second night that they were playing Winnipeg. But that made last night a bad spot to be in if you are the Calgary Flames. Because what the Avalanche resembled last night was less of a hockey team and more of an absolute buzzsaw. They were absolutely flying to begin that hockey game. They look like a team that was really upset about the fact that they lost to Winnipeg the other night. And they took out all of their frustrations on, it has to be said, a far inferior opponent in the Calgary Flames. There's a reason why the Flames dealt Nazem Kadri at the deadline. They don't really have a future. They're not a very good hockey team. And you combine that with the way the Avs are playing hockey right now and the fact that they were upset about what happened against Winnipeg, and it was just a really bad night for Calgary. Not their fault, but just the circumstances dictated that they were going to get their butts kicked. And the Avs came out flying and scored 5 goals in the first period en route to a 9-2 win. 9-2. They obliterated the Calgary Flames. Any memory that you may have had from that Winnipeg game, gone. Gone. They put that in the rearview mirror 5 minutes into the game. But it's not a secret that the Colorado Avalanche are a team that, if they jump on you at the beginning of the game, you're in a world of trouble. This is a team that, I don't want to say must start fast, because they certainly have the firepower to come from behind. But they are a team that is almost unbeatable when they jump on a team early with a couple of goals. And the Avs got 5. And there was a stretch in the second period where it seemed like the game was settling down a little bit. that the Avs weren't keeping up the pressure and the energy and the execution. And then they picked it back up and ended up adding 4 goals over the second 2 periods. If that game would have ended up 4-2, that's a decent win. The Avs had banked 5 goals before that. Man, there's just something about this team when they have the true desire to make an example out of somebody. That's what it felt like last night, that the Avalanche were trying to make an example out of the poor Calgary Flames. Maybe just an example to themselves, like, hey, if we do the things we're supposed to do and we jump on a team early and we don't let up, we are capable of extraordinary things. And I would characterize a 9-2 win as quite extraordinary. I don't care who the opponent is. But the Calgary Flames caught the full fury of the Colorado Avalanche last night. And they also caught the ire of one Nazem Kadri. You know, I throw around the term revenge game a lot because I like that premise. And it becomes a joke at times, like, is every player facing his former team really out for revenge? Like, look at the circumstances. And I think Calgary would be a great example. They gave Nazem Kadri what he wanted. The first interview Nazem Kadri did after getting dealt to the Avs was on TSN, and he goes, "Is this real life?" He was ecstatic to be rejoining the Colorado Avalanche. The Calgary Flames did him a huge favor and retained salary in order to make it happen. They did him a massive favor. What possible bad feeling could Nazem Kadri have towards the Calgary Flames? And there are stories like this all over the place. A guy leaves in free agency. Okay, well, you chose to leave. Why are you angry at your former employer? So when I say that there's these things as revenge games, like, there are levels to it. There are some games that really on paper don't seem like revenge games because revenge means some kind of negative emotion, and many athletes orchestrate their own moves, whether it be free agency or whether it just be okaying a trade to a specific spot. But we're talking about Nazem Kadri here. There are very few athletes who can, out of thin air, create this giant chip and place it directly on their shoulder. And Nazem Kadri is one of these guys. You know what he reminds me of? He reminds me a little bit of Chris Harris. Remember the corner for the Denver Broncos? That was a guy that, whether it was because he went to Kansas when they were not good at football, he was undrafted, he was undersized, all this kind of stuff he could continuously draw from. And he would seek out any perceived slight from an opponent. And he'd use it. And sometimes it got a little silly because Chris Harris, for a long stretch of his career with the Denver Broncos, was viewed as the best slot corner in the game, the best at what he did. There was certainly a point where he got his due respect, but the way he was wired, he'd find it, right? The most famous example of this is Michael Jordan. Opponents bow to this guy, and yet Michael Jordan still found a way to be upset at the opponent that given night. Nazem Kadri has that. And the message that he sent last night, scoring multiple goals, both, by the way, because this is important, on the power play, just moments from one another. Avs got a 5-on-3, and they cashed in on the 5-on-3 and the 5-on-4, courtesy of Nazem Kadri. It was almost as if Nazem Kadri is saying, how dare you give me what I was looking for, a chance to win the Stanley Cup? Or maybe it was, how dare you not surround me with better talent in Calgary? This is what I could have done had you surrounded me with more talent. Maybe it could be viewed as pettiness. But it is who Nazem Kadri is. It's what made him at the end of his Avalanche career a fan favorite. Now the whole St. Louis thing, that was real. That wasn't Nazem Kadri making stuff up. Like what he dealt with in that playoff series against St. Louis, with Binnington throwing the water bottle, with the taunts and messages that he got from St. Louis Blues fans, like he didn't have to make anything up there. And that was largely what made the Avs fan base rally around him. But he's always been somebody that knows how to take a perceived slight or hate or whatever it is and channel it in the best way possible for the Colorado Avalanche. And he did it again last night with not one, but two power play goals in rapid succession, coming just a minute and 6 seconds apart. Not saying the Avs can do this against everyone, but you know what it reminds me of is the other night when Murray dropped 53 on the Mavericks and Nikola Jokic put up one of his insane stat lines that earned him Western Conference Player of the Week. Like it's not what you can expect all the time, but it's just nice to know that the team you root for is capable of something like this at any given time. There are not many teams in the NHL that can go to the gear that the Avalanche were at last night. And it's just nice, no matter how up or down you are on the Avs' chances of winning a Stanley Cup, it's just nice to know. Thinking of an Office line. Oh, from the episode, The Fight, where Michael says, you know, I love these people, but they start coming in late and having dentist appointments that aren't really dentist appointments. And that's when it's nice to remind them that you can beat them up. That's what the Avs can do every once in a while. They can show you that they can absolutely dominate a team full of fellow NHLers. Now, I mentioned the Nazem Kadri 2 power play goals last night. Avs humming along on the power play. This is not a new development. I've been talking about this for the last couple of days. Avs 3 of 4 last night on the power play. Here's Jared Bednar on the why of it all.
Since the break, it's been doing a great job. It's been contributing on a nightly basis. Like I think we were 24+% since the break, which puts you at 7th or 8th in the league. You add tonight's into it, like it'll be top 5 since the break. So I think we have the talent there to be a top power play in the league.
And you and I agreed with Jared Bednar. It is one of the most confounding things in all of sports is why a team that has the talent that the Colorado Avalanche does and can be the best 5-on-5 team in the NHL. Why in the world were they near the bottom of the league on the power play? What do the Avs not have that Edmonton does? Because Edmonton, to their credit, for years has feasted on teams on the power play. It was like, and power plays, even the best power plays are like a third of the time they score. And that's like otherworldly. But it felt like every time the Oilers went on the power play, you were going to give up a goal. Like you just might as well put one on the board. How are the Avalanche not capable of that? with Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Gabriel Landeskog, Marty Necas, the list goes on. How are they not capable of this? So I agree with Jared Bednar. I've been wondering that. You've been wondering that. They have the talent. How come they can't put it together? It's always been the ideas, right, that have been the biggest impediment. How do you employ all of this talent? And now with Nazem Kadri, you balance the ice a little bit better. You put him in the spot Mikko Rantanen had. You shifted and put Nathan McKinnon down lower and move Marty Necas out wide. Now you got two guys that can let it rip from either circle in Kadri or Marty Necas. You have Nathan McKinnon lurking. You have Cale Makar at the point. It shouldn't have taken all of this, but clearly it needed to. But the Avs, like we talked about yesterday with the Nuggets uptick in defense, what you have to ask yourself is now that they have Nazem Kadri and now that they figured out how to use Marty Necas the way that they've decided to use him now, thanks to Czechia in the Olympics, is this who they really are? Are they this good of a power play? Because if they're this good of a power play in the playoffs, Lord Stanley's coming back to Denver. It just is. Because if the Avalanche are not just, I thought they could win a Stanley Cup with a middling power play. If they're elite on the power play, there's no stopping them. There isn't. I think the safest thing to do is to split the difference. To acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, this is a hot month for them, and they're not this, but they're also capable, as we've been saying throughout the year, of so much more than they were at the beginning of the year. And where's that about average out to? Middle of the road. Still a level with everything else the Avalanche have that they can win a Stanley Cup. Is it a sure thing in that case? No. But they absolutely can. And they would be the front runners if their power play is even middle of the road. I think that's probably what you can expect for it to be in the playoffs. Top 5? I think they're just really hot right now on the power play. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on what you're seeing from the Avs last night and just over the last couple of weeks as they get closer to the end of the season. Coming up next, just hear me out. That's all I'm asking for this next segment. Just hear me out. I've long felt like I have the most intelligent, tolerant audience in all of sports talk radio, an audience that understands, that is open to ideas and will take them and run them through a rigid process to see if it's actually a good idea. And we have a good dialogue on a daily basis. And I'm calling upon you one more time to walk with me. ESPN has put out a list of possible destinations for LeBron James to continue his basketball career beyond this season. One of those that they specifically, Dave McMenamin and Tim Bontemps, said that is most intriguing to NBA people is LeBron James going to the Denver Nuggets. Now, again, intelligent, thoughtful, tolerant radio audience. Let's fast forward a couple of months here. The Denver Nuggets fail to win an NBA title, okay, with the team that they currently have, which would lead most people, barring some, Aaron Gordon, his hamstring hanging off the bone, Nikola Jokic getting hurt, whatever it might be, barring some significant injury to a key player. Let's say the Denver Nuggets do not win a title. What are they supposed to do to make them better equipped to win a title next year? If I told you, as this ESPN article is suggesting, that the Nuggets take a player in Peyton Watson, that with the salary that the Nuggets already have committed to next year, cannot afford him, they were then to do a sign and trade with the Lakers, a team that has been long rumored to be interested in Peyton Watson, and bring in LeBron James, who, after he also is bounced from the playoffs at some point short of the NBA final, is looking for a chance to compete for a title one last time. With the constraints that the Denver Nuggets have on them, and with the ability to use Peyton Watson as a trade chip in a sign and trade, tell me how the Denver Nuggets are not better than what they are right now by essentially swapping Peyton Watson for LeBron James. Because they are better. LeBron James is a better player right now. He's not the player he once was. We can all acknowledge that. He is a better player right now than Peyton Watson. Tell me how that kind of a move doesn't make you say the Nuggets are better than they were the year prior. Because that's how they're going to have to do it. We have to be able to look at this Nuggets team going into next season if they fall short of a title and say, did they get better? Right? Denver Broncos, what were they doing? Bringing back a bunch of their guys that lost in the AFC Championship. That wasn't acceptable to people. And then what did they do? They got Jalen Waddle. Well, I'm sorry, there's no Jalen Waddle move to be made for the Denver Nuggets. This is the closest thing that the Denver Nuggets are going to get. Is being able to move out, and if you don't like the idea of trading Peyton Watson, they also threw out the idea of Cam Johnson. Does that change your mind at all? If the swap is either Cam Johnson or Peyton Watson for LeBron James, how are the Denver Nuggets not better? And isn't that at the end of the day what you want the Nuggets to be? Better. If they don't win a title this year, they have to get better some way, somehow. This is a way for them to be able to do it. So what would be the objection? Our question of the day on Facebook is exactly this. Would you want LeBron James on the Denver Nuggets? If the answer is no, okay, but why? Because I think LeBron James has been humbled a little bit this year, don't you think? The Lakers have broken away from the chokehold that he and Rich Paul had on the organization. They're making their own autonomous decisions. They are now only interested in who fits best with Luka. They're building their team around Luka. They have marginalized LeBron James's role with the team. It's a smaller role than he has had at any point in his career. So I'm not saying this is a wildly different LeBron James, but this is not a guy that at this stage of his career can be calling shots like he used to. And if there is an organization that would kowtow to this guy, it would still be LA. And if they're not doing it, what would be the fear that the Nuggets would? Because I just said that getting LeBron James is not like the Broncos getting Jalen Waddle. Okay, it's not this game changer that makes you think completely differently about this team. This, all told, is a marginal trade up. But that's all that the Denver Nuggets have. They gave away their first-round pick, the only one they had to trade, in order to facilitate the Michael Porter Jr. trade. They traded the best player in the deal and a number one pick. Tell me what other trade they're going to be able to make this offseason that you can say that they are a better team because of it. They have no more first-round picks to give. In the last trade, they gave away the best player in the trade. Michael Porter is better than Cam Johnson. Now, can Cam Johnson fit better with the Denver Nuggets than Michael Porter? That's always been my argument. Or be the same level of fit at the very least? Yes. But look at the talent Michael Porter is displaying while he's in Brooklyn. I know it's not winning them a lot of games, but I'm just talking about who Porter is as a player. The reality facing the Denver Nuggets, if they do not win a title, is that they may have exhausted taken their one big swing. And I understand getting LeBron James would be a big swing because it's a big name. But in terms of the caliber of player, in terms of how much better it makes the Denver Nuggets, it wouldn't be a huge swing. It would be a definite upgrade, I think, from what they have. So I think that hearts and minds need to be open to this idea. Because the other reality is, if you're not able to spin one of these guys off to get a better player, which you probably can't, unless it's this kind of extraordinary situation of the greatest player of his generation, but nearing the end of his career with maybe somewhat limited options. and a team that just so happens to be interested in one of the pieces that the Denver Nuggets have. There's a lot of things coming together here that makes this make a lot of sense. And I don't know that there's that many trades out there that can. I think at the end of this year, if both the Lakers and the Denver Nuggets fall short of an NBA title, this makes a ton of sense. And it's not really any different. Some of the circumstances have changed. But when I made my sales pitch to LeBron James back in 2018, I can still make that same sales pitch now. I look at the other teams on this list, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Cavs, the Warriors, New York. None of those teams give LeBron James a better chance to compete for one last championship than the Denver Nuggets. And it was true in 2018 when I made the same sales pitch, and the only thing that changed and allowed the Lakers to win a title was everything that happened with Anthony Davis. That was a corner that some people could not see around. Maybe LeBron knew all along that was going to be the case. I don't think that he did. If it is a basketball decision for LeBron James, one last chance, no guarantees, but one last decent shot at winning a title, Denver is the best fit of any of them. And you are playing with the best player in the world, and the two of them together with their basketball IQ, as ESPN points out, would be extraordinary. It would be a great fit in 2018 and be a great fit now. So tell me why you would say no to this. Cam Johnson or Peyton Watson for LeBron James. 719-247-1313. We'll stick with the NBA coming up next because something happened at the end of a basketball game that could mean something incredibly huge for anyone who does not want to see the Oklahoma City Thunder repeat as NBA champions. So before we get back to the Denver Nuggets future of not winning a title this year, let's talk about the viability of them winning a title this year. Something happened last night in an NBA game that many people thought they would never live to see the day. And it happened in the most important moment of the game. May I present to you the end of regulation between the Detroit Pistons and the Oklahoma City Thunder. This audio courtesy of Peacock.
Timeout. We're going to walk this down. Gilgeous Alexander stops. And it drops. It's an offensive foul. Going the other way.
He's got that off arm. Got a little bit of the stiff arm action going.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander hit what would have been the game-winning three last night and was called for an offensive foul. It is enough to bring tears to the eyes of NBA fans. Finally, Shai is getting what's coming to him. Finally, the referees have had it with him. And all it took was him getting 25 free throws in the game before that. So you'll excuse me if I don't believe that necessarily the NBA officials have said collectively, we've had it with what the Thunder do. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had to shoot 25 free throws in the game for the referees to finally be fed up with what he does on the offensive end to call him for a foul. I don't know about you. If Shai shoots 25 free throws in a playoff game, I think it's too late. But I do actually think that's what the referees in that game decided last night. We have given this guy 25 free throws. If he is going to fully extend his arm, if he is going to Heisman his defender after shooting 25 free throws, we are going to get him on this. But I don't believe that this is a bigger sign that finally the pleadings of David Adelman and Mike Brown and all of Twitter and me and you have finally fallen on ears that aren't deaf. I don't believe that's what this is. I believe in one isolated incident, the offensive foul was so egregious after a game in which Shai Gilgeous-Alexander shot 25 free throws, more than the entire Pistons team combined, that the referee said, no, not this one. Sorry. And here's the other part, and I continue to stay on this side of the line. The issue for, and let's call it what it is, the Denver Nuggets, is not what Shai does offensively. Because I got news for you. They're not stopping Shai anyway. The issue that David Adelman has brought up repeatedly that I say puts the Denver Nuggets in a very difficult position is the inconsistency in which the officials officiate the Thunder when they're on offense and the Thunder when they're on defense. My bigger problem is what the Thunder defense gets away with. And there's another clip from that game where the color analyst for the game is talking about how Luke Kennard, I believe, or one of those guys, has visible scratches on his arm. Where does that sound familiar? And the Thunder scratch and claw and hit and push and do all of this stuff. And then arrived at the conclusion of, but it's their identity. How are you going to call them on it? Which just speaks to the how there's no hope left. How are you going to call by calling them for it? If their identity is they do things that are outside of the rules, it is incumbent upon the officials to rein them in. If their identity is they are getting away with clutching and grabbing and scratching and clawing, thankfully not tripping, they don't get away with tripping, you call them on it. You say, guess what? This can't be your identity anymore. We have seen in other sports, if your identity is you go headhunting in the NFL, you will be penalized for it. I don't care that's your identity, New Orleans Saints. You can't do that anymore. If your identity as a baseball team is you steal signs, Houston Astros, Major League Baseball eventually, not fast enough for any of our satisfactions, but got to the point where he said, you can't do that anymore. So why is that standard not held for the Oklahoma City Thunder? Why can they put their foot down, albeit after 25 free throws, put their foot down with what Shea does offensively, and not put their foot down with what Lou Dort and Alex Caruso do defensively? That's where I wish the referees would be fed up. We have to be honest here. If you are a team, and I'm broadening from the Denver Nuggets, if you are a Laker fan, if you are a Spurs fan, if you are a fan of any team with a superstar, you want SGA's whistle. You don't want to admit it, but you do. You want Nikola Jokic to get all the calls. You just do. And that's fine because that's your guy. I don't have as big of a problem with the way that Shea is officiated as I do when it comes to the way that the Oklahoma City Thunder are allowed to defend. That is what David Adelman has been fighting for, because he knows as well as I do and as well as you do, if the Oklahoma City Thunder are allowed to play defense the way they have played defense against the Denver Nuggets, the Nuggets are not beating them in a 7-game series. But they're not asking, I am not asking, you are not asking for the Thunder to be officiated wildly different than anybody else. This identity of them doing illegal things on defense, that's not okay. That is their identity. That is where the referees in the NBA need to put their foot down. Because the Thunder, specifically against the Denver Nuggets, are gaining an advantage they should not be allowed to gain. And just because Jokic is bigger and stronger than Alex Caruso, tough. Mark Dagno, put Chet Holmgren on him. Oh, you did? And he dominates him? Well, tough. So I do not share in the collective glee from NBA fans across North America that are saying finally the officials are taking back the game and not letting Oklahoma City get away with this nonsense. Because they already had Shea go the line 25 times or shoot 25 free throws. And they all, I would argue that regardless of the way the game played out, the unnatural push off, it's very difficult to call. But I said this when Luka hit the shot over Spencer Jones. They never call that. So if there is a game in the playoffs where Shea shoots 25 free throws and then he tries to do that, yeah, maybe the referees will call it. Is that really what makes the difference? Is that really what people are asking for? Because I think if you're a Nuggets fan, what you're asking for is not for Shea to get offensive foul calls left and right. You're asking for Jokic to be able to get foul calls on the other end because of what the Thunder are doing to him. And you're right. So what happened last night actually doesn't move the needle for the Denver Nuggets' chances of being OKC or anybody being OKC in the postseason for that matter. But I will say this, 25 free throws or no, it is nice to at least see once that even the most egregious offensive fouls by Shea can be called at some point. That is nice to see, but this because what this plays into is the idea that after the Nuggets game, and David Adelman went on those rants, and I remember Nick Wright and other national talking heads said this may be a turning point where the Oklahoma City Thunder are officiated closer to everyone else. And that was, what, a month and a half ago, and nothing has changed. So last night was not this watershed moment, and it's not even the end of the floor that David Adelman or I have been asking for the referees to put their foot down on. It's when the Nuggets are on offense and the Thunder are on defense. That's what has to stop. 719-24-7, 1313. Take your thoughts on our question of the day. ESPN has theorized that LeBron James might be a good fit for the Denver Nuggets next year in a swap with either Cam Johnson or Peyton Watson. How does that sit with you? And can you really say that LeBron James right now isn't an upgrade over Cam Johnson or Peyton Watson? That's really what I want to hear. Tell me he's not, and we'll have that discussion. But all the other stuff, I don't think it's as prevalent with LeBron James as it used to be. More Drive Time Sports coming up here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in. Glad to have you. Appreciate you watching the show on any platform you routinely scroll on at 740 KVOR, at Extra Sports 1300. While you're there, like, subscribe, and most importantly, comment, because this is an interactive experience. And proof of that will be our continuing conversation about ESPN's thought piece today that perhaps LeBron James would be a good fit with the Denver Nuggets next year. And they could trade Peyton Watson or Cam Johnson to bring him in. That's our question of the day, and I would welcome your thoughts on the subject. We will get to that here shortly. But in the meantime, the new head coach of the Air Force men's basketball team, may I present to you Joe Crispin.
I do believe in a game that is fast, fearless, and free. So when I took one look at the Air Force motto, fly, fight, win, I thought I don't have to create a single thing here. It's already written. What the community is all about, what the academy is all about, and put it onto the court. As far as I'm concerned, if the mission of Air Force is to fly, fight, and win, that's exactly what we're doing. Fast, fearless, free. Those are my beliefs about the game.
Joe Crispin meeting the media as well as the Air Force fans, alumni, other members of the athletic department. It was a press conference, but also a chance for people who are stakeholders in the Air Force men's basketball program to meet the new leader in Joe Crispin. And my takeaway from listening to him speak and talking to him after was it just really fortified what I believed when the announcement was made that he got the job. Where Air Force is right now and what difficulties they have. And I've talked about this. It's not impossible for teams at Air Force to be competitive. It's not. And men's basketball is no different. But men's basketball might be the most difficult of any job at the academy to produce perennially competitive teams. And given that, wanting the job, wanting that challenge is more than half the battle. And one thing that I heard repeatedly from Joe Crispin this afternoon is that he really wants this job. He really wants the chance to become a Division I head coach, and he likes the idea of being a Division I head coach at this institution here in Colorado Springs. And it's not to say that any of Joe Crispin's predecessors did not want the job, did not embrace the challenge, because they did. Joe Scott, Dave Pilipovich, I know both of them well. They embraced the challenge. They wanted the challenge of coaching at Air Force. But if you're going to make the moves that Director of Athletics Nathan Pine made and go out and open up the search and try to find people, there are going to be plenty of people who aren't going to want the job. That's just the reality of this situation. And in talking with some of the people at Air Force, one of the things that really stood out to them was just how in love with the idea of coaching at Air Force and everything that comes along with it that Joe Crispin was. And that's something easy to get excited about. And I, was observing a lot of the people who are season ticket holders or who donate to the Air Force athletic program. And I could see that they were impressed, that they were buying in to what Joe Crispin was saying. there was an energy in that room today that I think that program has not had in a very long time. And a lot of it is newness. Newness is exciting. Newness is fun. You think of the possibilities rather than what has happened in the past. But something about Joe Crispin's message, I think, resonated. And how much he embraces the challenge, how much he thinks that some of the advantages of Air Force that have not been quite as highlighted should be more and will be tenets of his program. And he thinks he'll be able to convince talented young basketball players to join him. And that's what you want to hear first and foremost. You don't want to hear a coach sit up there on, I guess we'll call this day one of his tenure and go, see, we need to change this. And we need, in order to win, this has got to be different. And you can't ask my players to do this, or this at the academy needs to be changed. You want somebody who embraces all that the academy is and thinks that he could thrive in that space. Now, as to the how he utilizes all of this to get Air Force to be competitive, here's a little bit more with Joe Crispin leaning into the idea of playing fast and free.
I think reset is a curse word in basketball. I think the game should flow. I think the way you play defense plays a huge part in scoring. I'm known as a scoring guy because I am. I'm committed to scoring. I'd like to score 100 every night. And that's how we're going to play. We're going to be on our toes. We're going to be aggressive without being dumb. But I warn you, we will cross the line into dumb at times. That's the way it works. And then you just get back into the other line and recognize that you're the aggressor.
And you could hear some of the chuckles from the people there. There's a sincerity. There's an honesty with Joe Crispin as well that I think resonated with some people, and understanding that it's not going to be perfect all the time. And there are going to be mistakes that his teams will make for the sake of aggressiveness. And you hear other coaches, talk about this, the mistakes born out of effort, they will not chastise their players for. If you're going all out and you're being ultra aggressive and you make a mistake, that's one you can live with. And it seems like Joe Crispin is okay with those kind of mistakes because it goes to the overall identity he wants his team to have, which is just relentless. Relentless for 40 minutes. And I asked him the question about his impressions of what he's seen from this team. And he said he sees a lot of guys on this team that can play the way he wants to play. And in a place where you can't just turn over the entire roster, that's a good thing to hear. That he sees the skill sets of some of these players being able to mesh with what he wants to do. And I think the progression is going to go this way. I think the first step for Joe Crispin, and he talked about this during the press conference today, I think first they're going to be entertaining. And yes, there's an ultimate goal of winning. It is not, we talk about sports being entertainment, and they are, but the most entertaining thing is when our teams win, no matter how they play. I mean, look at Oklahoma City Thunder fans. Everyone else in the league absolutely hates everything about them. But their fans embrace it and they love it. Why? Because they win. So time will tell whether Joe Crispin's style and all his ideas are what can lead to consistent competitiveness at the Air Force Academy. But the first step is going to be when you pay your money to watch a game at Clune, that you are going to be more entertained than maybe you have been in the past. And I think that's the first step. I mean, Joe Crispin and college coaches by trade, they're salesmen and saleswomen, right? They're selling recruits, they're selling donors, they're selling the fans. And right now, of all the programs at Air Force, there's no product that's at a lower spot right now that needs more selling than Air Force men's basketball. And I think there's a curiosity factor with all of this. I think I think there are plenty of people in that room that I was sitting in that came away saying, yeah, I'm going to give this guy in this program a chance. And that's the first step. The buy-in from the players. And that's going to be the more important thing. Seems like it's going to be a little bit different for these guys. Do they buy into that? Do they see what Joe Crispin sees? And are they willing to play that way? And then beyond that, it's whether the way they play is enough to get you out to support this team, to watch, to listen to this team. And then, and there's no specific timeline on it necessarily, a half a season, a full season, 2 seasons. It takes, how long it takes. But then the next step is, okay, you're entertaining. Is this viable to winning? Can you win games in the Mountain West Conference by playing this way? That we won't know until they actually get on the court. And in fairness, you got to at least give him one recruiting class too, I think. Let him bring in a recruiting class of his guys to mix with the players he inherits. And then I think that's when you need to see, a little bit of progress and can start to draw conclusions about whether this will ultimately work long term. And I'll, obviously because of my knowledge of this program, but also I think it provides a bit of a blueprint here. Air Force, when Chris Gobrecht took over on the women's side, that first year was not a good season. It was not. They didn't win a lot of games. But then she and her staff got to work and brought in some players, and the message kind of sunk in, and players were a little bit more comfortable. And then you started to see them move the needle a little bit. Still not leaps and bounds, not going to the, a postseason tournament, not challenging for the Mountain West title 2 years in, but you saw progress. And I think it's the same thing here. Year one, the entertaining product, I think, resonated with a lot of people. Put out the entertaining product. Get at least one recruiting class under your belt by specifically targeting your type of players. Mix them in with the players you have returning, because this is a very young Air Force team that he's inheriting, which I think can actually be a good thing. I think it'd be a good thing that a lot of the players that he will have in his program have how many freshmen were on this team this year? So these players are just getting started. I think they're amenable to change. I think they're amenable to other ideas and are flexible enough to be able to move to a different style of play better than, guys who have been in the program for 3 and 4 years. That's a more jarring change, I think, for them. So I think it speaks to just why, for so many reasons, this was the right time to make this change. He inherits a young team, a team that he can make an impression on, get one of his recruiting classes, and then we'll see how this goes. But I think, judging by the people that were in the room, I thought the message was well received. I think a lot of people see what Joe Crispin sees. And I think more than anything, just to go back to my original point, I think they heard and saw and shook hands and talked to a guy that genuinely wants this job, that genuinely looks at this as an opportunity and an opportunity that he will embrace. If you were there today or you watched it, the live stream of it, I'd love to hear from you, your first impressions of Joe Crispin, 719-247-1313. There are plans in the works to have Coach Crispin on this program this week. So a more one-on-one conversation, and you'll be able to hear a little bit more from him. But the timing made a lot of sense, and listening to him today, who he is as a coach and his ideas makes a lot of sense for this Air Force program. 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. Do you like the idea of LeBron James finishing his career with the Denver Nuggets? ESPN does. Putting out a think piece today listing the Nuggets as one of a handful of teams that would make sense to have LeBron James on their team next year. They did remind everyone in the piece that Josh Kroenke tried to get LeBron James in 2018. I believe he sent him a rainbow skyline jersey to try and get him to join the Denver Nuggets. A futile effort as it was because LeBron wanted to make Space Jam, but tried. And he is a friend. And Jared Dudley, who is a new assistant coach under Dave Adelman, also with LeBron. The how would be you sign and trade with Peyton Watson or you trade Cam Johnson to bring in LeBron James. Let's get to your thoughts first on the stream in the chat, as they say. Sean Martinez, as you hear him every morning on KVUR, not a fan of it, says Denver needs someone who can play defense and not a flopper. I will tell you that the defense argument, Sean, is pretty solid. He is not having his finest defensive performance. And and I said this when I brought this topic up, if we're having a basketball conversation, then I think there are reasons maybe you wouldn't want LeBron James. Defense would be one of them. So Sean would sign up for getting more of a defensive-minded player than maybe LeBron is at this stage in his career. I think that is fair. The flopper thing, I mean, let's be fair. Nikola Jokic flops. So, I mean, if you don't want a flopper on your team, then I don't know that you can actually fill out an NBA roster, if we're being honest with it. And I will say, if it helps, LeBron James does not get the whistle that he used to. And that's kind of because the preemptive strike I want to launch here is the idea that LeBron James at this stage of his career is a diva that is going to come in and demand all these things out of the Denver Nuggets. Look at what has happened with the Lakers. I think it's to his credit, or maybe you could say it's about time. But LeBron has taken a smaller role, a far diminished role with the LA Lakers this year. He has understood his place with this team. They operate better with Austin Reeves and Luka without him. And I think people change. And I think LeBron at this stage of his career, I don't know that he wants to win a title above everything else. But if that is one of the big drivers of where his decision this summer, then he has to understand that he's not going to be the star. Like, you can't have both. He thought he could have both in LA. Those days are now over. Luka is there. He's been marginalized, and his numbers are down from what they have been. There's been some regression. I think LeBron has to understand that he can't be the focal point of a championship team anymore. Take some other thoughts. Producer Ray Dominguez on the microphone. What have we got?
All right, so on Facebook.
Which is where we're asking this question, if you like to go and give your comments there.
No one's given reasons. I got Pete, don't disrupt the team.
Okay.
Todd, no. Matthew, no, thank you. Rich, nah, I'm good. And then Jeremy, F, no. Let's go to text.
Wait, is his last name start with an F, or is he
no?
Okay.
Yeah. He's really emphasizing. Yeah, he's emphasizing.
Okay.
So from Tom, I would rather have my team miss the playoffs than have LeBron James on their team. They may be better, but I don't want to see it.
But why though?
Yeah, no.
That's what I keep saying. Why? If because right there, if he makes them better, why wouldn't you want him? Like that to me is the argument that I can't understand. If you acknowledge that he would make the team better, then how could you not want him when the Nuggets are in championship or bust mode every single year? If I told you there was any player that can make the Denver Nuggets better, how could you not want them on the team? I don't understand that logic. And I think it's based on a body of work from LeBron James versus what he actually is right now in his career.
All right. From the 719. What about the locker room stuff? Also, don't you think he disrupts the flow of the Laker offense when he comes in? He may be the fourth option if he ever did come to the Nuggets. My vote is no, unless he's an off-bench role player.
Well, if you trade him for Peyton Watson, that's what he would be.
Yeah, he would.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean that's what he would be. Peyton Watson is a bench player. LeBron James, you trade him, that makes sense. He'd be a bench player. So there's that. Now I would just say that I don't know that LeBron James is going to want to come to Denver unless he's going to be in the starting 11 or starting 5. Sorry, soccer brain. Starting 5. And I think that's why it maybe makes more sense that Cam Johnson is the player who is then going to be on an expiring deal next year. Would be the most would make a little bit more sense,
right?
And put LeBron James in there. The locker room stuff, I don't know what they're.
I haven't
referring
heard of
to.
stuff
I
in
haven't
a while.
heard all that's coming out of Lakerland right now. Any vitriol that's being directed at LeBron James and the Lakers is just that you got to bench LeBron. You can't put him with Reeves and Luka. They're better without him.
Right.
And the Lakers have acknowledged this. LeBron has acknowledged this.
And
here we are.
My question is, we have one more text, but everybody always says Jokic makes people better.
Mm-hmm.
So if LeBron comes, is Jokic going to bring that out of him?
I think it's reasonable to say that with anybody.
Right.
You are hard pressed to find someone who has played with Nikola Jokic and been better elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like I legitimately don't know who that player
Michael
is.
Porter.
No.
He's the only one I can think of. KC.
But is that, and that's a great one, but is that because along with him not playing with Jokic, he's in could you say that let's spin this scenario. Jokic and Porter as the duo in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Is Michael Porter better, worse, or the same as he is right now? I would argue he'd be even better. Than what he's showing if Jokic. I think the Porter thing, and it's a great example to bring up, I think the Porter thing is more his role within that offense. And KCP's not good. KCP was at his best. Bruce Brown has been at his best.
Bruce Brown. Remember Jeremy Grant or
Jeremy Grant. When I want to be a bigger scoring option, which he kind of was Porter before Porter went to a place. He was a bigger scoring option, and I don't know that he was better off without Jokic. So I think the answer is yes, that playing with Nikola Jokic would make LeBron better. But in terms of the fit, I actually think it's a good fit because right now LeBron James is playing when he's not coming off the bench, but when he's in this lineup with Luka and Austin Reeves, he's playing with two incredibly ball-dominant players.
Right.
So playing with the Nuggets, and I know we talk about Michael Porter and Cam Johnson being put into this box, but I think it still presents him more opportunities than he would playing with Luka, because just compare the two superstars, Jokic to Luka.
Mm-hmm.
Who's better to play with, Luka or Jokic? It's Jokic. Who are you going to get more opportunities with, Luka or Jokic? It's Jokic. So I think the fit would not be a bad.
That's not a like LeBron wouldn't look at Denver and be like, I don't know about the fit. I think he would be like, huh. And if you compare it to the other teams involved or on the list, he's the best fit. the Denver Nuggets are the best fit.
Well, I think. Well, I mean, Golden State would be. It depends on what he values.
Right.
Again, because if it's the best fit is where he can get out whatever talent he has left in the 41-year-old? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where now he's 41. I always forget, but him and I are like 2 months apart. So he gets as much talent out of his 41, soon to be 40 next year, 42-year-old body that he can. And he gives him the best opportunity to compete for a title. That's Denver. If he were to go to, say, Golden State, he would have a pretty prominent role on a team that is nowhere close to winning a title. So it's kind of like we're talking about, Porter. The best fit for LeBron, the Warriors, there's nobody like whose job is he taking? Who's the second option on that team beyond Steph Curry? It might be LeBron James.
Yeah.
At that point. So the fit thing, it just depends on what LeBron James wants out of this stage of his career.
So from Albert, LeBron would be a big upgrade, and he has learned how to be a third option, but he doesn't play defense like he could in the past. The Nuggets have injury issues, which has been their barrier to success in the past. LeBron will maybe be available for 50 games, but the bigger issue could be, can the Nuggets as an organization handle the LeBron circus? If he comes in, it would be a huge cultural shift.
But how? I think, again, with Albert and with Sean, I think the defense is a valid argument. I would say on the aggregate, LeBron James is an upgrade over Peyton Watson or Cam Johnson. But if you have something very specific that you want out of the Denver Nuggets and out of that position and its defense, that, maybe LeBron James isn't your guy. Again, what is the culture shock that comes along with it? Because I think as much as I love, talking about, LeBron James, as much as maybe I love LeBron James, I certainly admire who he is as a player. I haven't liked everything that he's done. I've been very vocal about that. But I think that the Nuggets at this point, as opposed to 2018, if we're making that comparison, let's not turn this into, and I think this is where it becomes the culture shock or the circus that maybe Albert is worried about and some other people are worried about. Let's make no mistake here. In this, and I go back to Jalen Waddle, the Broncos need Jalen Waddle more than Jalen Waddle needed the Broncos.
Right.
It's a good fit. Both can benefit from it. But if you want to, divvy it out, the Broncos needed Waddle more than Waddle needed the Broncos. LeBron James, if he's serious about competing for another title, needs the Denver Nuggets more than the Denver Nuggets need him. Mm-hmm. So this is not a situation that maybe back in 2018 was, please, LeBron, come help us, come save us.
Right.
That is gone. LeBron James isn't that player anymore. And the Nuggets, even though some people are going to be quite upset if this season doesn't end in a title, the Nuggets aren't desperate for a savior. Mm-hmm. But what they will be desperate for is upgrades at certain positions if they can make them.
But do you think the media circus around him coming, there would be a media circus around him if he came here? One, I think Jokic would like it, take a lot of media obligation off him.
And Jamal Murray, for that matter.
They're both like that. But what I'm saying is kind of the pressure more now on the Nuggets, because now it's
to be the team that
delivers him his last championship.
Well, let me ask this question then, because I think that's interesting. Is that the conversation around the Lakers right now? Whether the Lakers can deliver LeBron another title?
No.
It's about Luka.
Yeah.
The Lakers right now are about Luka. Can Luka get the Lakers to a title? Can the Lakers deliver a title for Luka? It's not about LeBron's title. I mean, certainly that would be a huge storyline if the Lakers were to make it to the NBA Finals.
Right.
But the story in LA is Luka centric. It's not LeBron centric.
Yeah, but that's because LeBron's been there. LeBron goes to another team.
So LeBron goes to the Nuggets. Is it more about him
Yes.
than Jokic?
Yes.
From whose
I think
perspective?
any team he goes to. Now I'm just saying any team he goes to because they know either next year, or the year after,
He's going there to try and win a title.
he's going there to win
Chase
title
on.
and retire.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if he goes there, then the pressure comes on him to. You went there for a title. You need to be on that. You need to win a title this year. And so
I mean, that pressure already exists for the Denver Nuggets.
Right. So, I mean, it could work. But again, it's like I said, he's been with the Lakers. It's not really working out. They traded for Luka because they kind of knew LeBron's not going to work. We kind of need to look at the future.
Well, because Nico Harrison's a numbskull.
Yeah, no, I don't even mention. It's like Voldemort. I shouldn't mention his name, right? But actually, there's another GM that I don't like doing that. But I would say if he once LeBron goes to a different team,
the storyline becomes all
because
about
look at Giannis,
him.
just him maybe getting traded, him being the idea of him being on a different team, what that created.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think LeBron James he might create something?
Maybe it would shift it, but it would be the same level of expectation. I think here's the way it would be viewed here. I can tell you the way it would be viewed here because I host a show in here. The question is not whether the Nuggets can deliver LeBron one more title.
Mm-hmm.
The question, and this is what I'm posing, the question is, does LeBron help Jokic win another title? Because that's where our mindset is.
Yeah.
I'm saying the Nuggets fall short of a title this year, right? Because all last offseason, it was, they're wasting Nikola Jokic. The conversation would be, is LeBron James at 41 years old an upgrade over player X to get Jokic closer to winning a title? Because the Denver Nuggets will have squandered one of the supreme talents in sports by only having one title. So the locally, it's going to be, does LeBron help Jokic win a title? On ESPN and First Take, sure. But it still ends up being championship or bust. You're still being asked questions about your viability of winning a title. I don't think it's a culture shock like it would be if
it was 2018.
LeBron ends up. I'll tell you a place where it'd be like Golden State. Has anybody talked about Golden State as a viable title contender in years, really?
No.
Or if he goes to Charlotte and they're like, oh my gosh, now we got to win.
I think the biggest story, if any team, with Cleveland, because it'd be like they got to win this last one for his last year.
I think that's a good point. I think that Cleveland, it would add a level of pressure. I mean, they're in championship or bust mode a little bit, but because of the local ties and because of LeBron's connection to that franchise and that state and that city, yeah, maybe you could imagine it's a little bit even more pressure than would be. But the Nuggets are already in you got to win a title or you failed.
Right.
I mean, that's the mode they're in. So adding LeBron James, I don't know that it moves the needle quite as much as people might worry about.
No,
in terms of
right. I think it would be
pressure.
I think it would be like a media circus in the beginning, maybe first few months, then it would start to die down.
Yeah. Well, and let me take it one. It would be a fascinating experiment.
Right, it'd be fun.
Put LeBron James on the Denver Nuggets and see if the Denver Nuggets are talked about to a level that is agreeable to us out here, because we always think that the Nuggets don't get enough. And the MVP conversation is the new form of that, right? Why is nobody talking about Nikola Jokic? at least in the MVP conversation. Let me spin it another way, and then we'll take a break. Again, 719-247-1313. ESPN thinks the Nuggets are a fit for LeBron next year. What do you think? If adding LeBron amps up the pressure on the Denver Nuggets, isn't that actually a good thing?
Yeah.
Isn't that actually what we've been asking Nikola Jokic to do with the Denver Nuggets for the last couple of years? Put pressure on them. Don't blindly sign your next contract. Go to them and say, this is what I need to win. We've wanted Jokic to put more pressure on the Nuggets. And now a little bit of that pressure has been relieved because they made the moves they did this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
But that pressure will be ratcheted up again if this doesn't work. So couldn't I say it's a good thing?
Yeah.
That as much pressure is on the Nuggets as possible is a good thing with an organization that might be at times a bit frugal, a bit too loyal to some players when difficult decisions need to be made. I don't know that more pressure on the Nuggets is a bad thing.
I just feel like they're not going out of their way to get him here. And I feel like that's kind of the best fit, if that makes sense.
And I think you're right about that. And I think that's why it makes a lot of sense, because you're not like a Giannis trade. You're not, trading 18 things to bring in this one guy. And they're proposing a 1-for-1. LeBron for Cam, LeBron for Peyton.
Who Lakers already wanted Peyton, so.
Right, and that's why I said that would make a ton of sense. I think for a fit, it might be better if it's Cam Johnson on his way out, because I really like the idea of Peyton Watson with the second unit. But that's another story entirely. 719-247-1313. Back after this. One last thing I will say, unless you want to start up again with the LeBron conversation, something Ray brought up to me. Remember this offseason when there was a picture on Instagram of Jokic's European agent on a boat with LeBron James? Remember what we thought that was about? And then we're like, that's silly. Well, fast forward how many months later and the picture. We'll see. Look, I'll say this too. I don't believe that Denver, despite that picture, I don't believe that the Nuggets would be top on LeBron's list. But now let's acknowledge that LeBron's options, even from one year to the next, are more limited than they were. So I don't think that LeBron is looking at Denver because being the family man that he is, I think he would prefer to stay in LA. And California is where the Golden State Warriors play. So that's also close-ish to his family. So I think there are a lot of priorities. I don't know, and I'm not trying to be, knock LeBron because the guy has done enough winning. Not enough winning to become the GOAT. We can all agree on that. But he's done enough winning in his career. I don't know that simply chasing a ring is his biggest desire. So is Denver a city that he would like? Would his family like to hang out here? Does he just want to, have a better individual season than he's having this year? I don't think the Nuggets are at the top of his priority list. And I also don't think that this will end up being the number one wish list item for the Denver Nuggets this offseason. My point is those options will be limited for the Denver Nuggets, and LeBron makes sense. But let's see when the offseason rolls around what ultimately becomes the reason why the Denver Nuggets, if they don't win a title, why they didn't. And then we'll see where LeBron stacks up on that list. I don't think either party is putting one another at the top of their list for this summer. Good conversation. And I'm here for it. We got another hour if you want to chime in. 719-247-1313. Want to bring you this item real quick, and this is good news, all told. Cale Makar left the game last night, the win over the Flames, which I'll talk about here momentarily. Pierre LeBrun of The Athletic says, on Cale Makar, don't believe it's too serious, but he will likely miss a few games in order to get him to 100% before the playoffs. And here we go. This is the throttling down of the Colorado Avalanche. They've done what they needed to do. They're going to get the number one seed. They're going to win the division. Now, Jared Bednar, and I know he's talked recently about finding the right combinations. You know where Cale Makar is going to be. Okay, he's talking about the third and fourth line here. Avs need to get Nick Waugh back and figure out what they're going to do with him come postseason. They need to figure out whether it's going to be Wedgwood or Blackwood in game one. They don't need to worry about, who are we going to fit with Cale Makar? That's set. But this is the beginning, and maybe it's being thrust upon them with the injury last night. But this is what gives Jared Bednar a license to say, okay, we're going to start throttling it down here. We're going to play our stars fewer minutes. We're going to lean more on our depth and try to figure out some things there. And I think the results and the performances are going to match that. I think the Avalanche are going to throttle down a little bit here. towards the end of the season, but they've done their work. And if last night is, and I guess they have Dallas on Saturday, so maybe one more. Maybe they can't quite yet. I mean, maybe Avs fans want them to give it their best shot against Dallas one more time this season. But I just think the mindset of the Avs is going to start to shift to, all right, now let's make sure that we're healthy and complete when the playoffs roll around, and it starts with Cale Makar. But the good news is it doesn't seem like it's anything serious. So we'll talk about that unbelievable performance from the Avs and what's driving the show coming up next. Hi, welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, on the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, which are sponsored by Diversus Health, or whether you're watching the show anywhere you scroll. If you'd like to take your participation to the next level, we've had a lively debate today with a lot of good candidates. 719-247-1313 is the number to text or call into the show. Producer Ray Dominguez is standing by. Right now, perhaps these are stories you'd like to discuss because they are the ones that are driving the show. All right, we start story number one. Every once in a while, it's nice to remind the rest of the league that you can beat them up.
Cross-ice pass from Valanciunas. Pass back door. Off. Backhander. He scores. Oh, Captain. My Captain. And the Calgary Flames are drinking from the fountain. It's poured like an avalanche. It's coming down the mountain. It's 4-0 Colorado.
Connor McGahee on the call for Altitude Sports, as heard right here on Extra Sports 1300. That was the fourth of 5 goals that the Colorado Avalanche would put up in period number 1 en route to a 9-2 route of the team that used to employ Nazem Kadri. And I just feel for Calgary a little bit because they picked the worst time to be on the Avs schedule, and how dare they pick that date as if they had any say in it. But the Avalanche, who were rolling along, win, and then they kind of stubbed their toe against Winnipeg. And when you are a team that is led by Nathan MacKinnon and Gabriel Landeskog, you get quite upset about that. And the best way to take out your frustrations is to have a far inferior opponent visit your building the very next game. That's what last night was. The Avalanche, from the opening puck drop, were determined to put that Winnipeg game behind them and to be able to, if anybody was doubting after the Winnipeg game, I don't even know how many people saw the Winnipeg game, if I'm being honest, but just in case you're like, I don't know about the Avs. I don't know that they're all what they're cracked up to be. 9-2 to another NHL team. They are all they're cracked up to be. And once again, in addition to the 9 goals, and in addition to the fact that Nazem Kadri scored 2 of them, actually the more important thing is that Kadri scored both of those goals on the power play. The Avalanche last night failed on only 1 of their power play attempts. And they are one of the best teams in the NHL on the power play in the month of March. Could Nazem Kadri have been the difference maker? Hard to argue against it. He comes in, all of a sudden, they're one of the best power play units in the NHL. The balance he has brought back, because they didn't have a left-handed shot opposite Marty Necas, with the way that Necas has already been playing on the power play, and Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar and company, I think you could say that Nazem Kadri has changed things on the top power play unit. But the question that I want to ask coming out of this in the month of March that the Avs have had on the power play, is this just who they are now? And I asked this question yesterday with the Denver Nuggets and their ability in the last 18 games to hold 4 opponents under 100 points. Is the change on the defensive end for the Nuggets, is this just who they are now? And I asked the same question with the Avs. This is a team that could not buy a power play goal for the first 4 months of the season. And now all of a sudden they're one of the best. I think Nazem Kadri's addition has been phenomenal. I think you split the difference. They've never been poor enough to be one of the worst 3 power play units in the NHL. That just wasn't real. But I would temper enthusiasm slightly and just say maybe they're still not the best power play unit in the NHL. But does it matter? Because I am of the mind that if the Colorado Avalanche, with everything else they present to any opponent they may face in the postseason, if the weakest part of their team, which has been the power play, is by league standards middle of the road, I think the Avs have so much other stuff that they can win a Stanley Cup with that level of power play. And if you split the difference between what they have been for October, November, December, January, and February, and now what they are in March, you get a middle-of-the-road power play unit. That's good enough for the Avs to win a Stanley Cup. It wasn't a high bar being set by me or anybody. Just be halfway decent on the power play, and you are so good in every other area. Their penalty kill all season has been one of the best in the NHL. Their goaltending tandem has been one of the better goaltending tandems. They have the guy that is the front runner right now for MVP. They're getting a career year for Marty Necas. You just add it all up with Nazem Kadri and the early signs that Nick Waugh has shown before he got hurt. The Avs have enough to win a Stanley Cup. It just, when the power play was 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, then you wondered if that was too much of an Achilles heel. And at some point, Dallas, it would cost them. Their power play is 15th or 16th in the league. I don't know that it's certainly their biggest weakness. I don't think it's the liability that a bottom 3 power play would have been. So even if you say, okay, this may not be 100% real right now, you just split the difference. I think that's a power play unit good enough with everything else to win a Stanley Cup. 9-2. The Avalanche beat the Flames. But one thing I will say, and this is not to knock the Colorado Avalanche, but we've seen these kind of performances before, haven't we? Not saying it's old hat, but there's a certain level of expectation. The subject of story number 2, we have no expectations for what they did last night.
2-2. Line to left center field. That'll bring 2 more home. And it's going to roll all the way to the warning track. And Tovar has himself a 2-run double. 9-1 Colorado.
Rockies television on the call, 14-5. We have not seen an offensive performance from the Colorado Rockies like the one they got in Toronto last night in 3 years. And out of a largely abysmal offensive performance against Miami. Where was this in Miami? You want to talk about splitting the difference? How about you shave off about 7 runs from last night, add them to the Miami series? We might be talking about the Rockies at 4-0 right now. Now, this is where I really need you to temper your enthusiasm, because the starting pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays, Cody Ponce, fell down not once but twice and had to be carted off the field. Very scary stuff for Cody Ponce. And that just threw off the entire Blue Jays team. All of a sudden, pitchers were being brought in way earlier than they expected to be, and that game got out of control. It can happen. Maybe not against the Rockies, but it can happen. This is nowhere close to what the Rockies are. Here's one thing, though, that continues to be a theme, and it speaks to what the number one tenet of Warren Schaefer is. You know, this team is third in Major League Baseball in stolen bases. The promise that Warren Schaefer delivered, that the Rockies are going to run on the base pass, they are going to be aggressive, they have lived up to that. And as long as they can get guys on base, they're actually kind of fun to watch when that happens. So this Rockies team, at least, and it goes back to what I said a few days ago on the eve of opening day. Tell me what your ideas are, Rockies, and then show me that you're doing it. And I'll come along for the ride. If what was promised was a team that is more contact driven, not hitting bombs, they only got one last night or two in 14 runs. You're going to get on base with contact hitters, and once those hitters are on base, you're going to give them the green light to steal, to take the extra base. You're doing that. And last night, it actually led to a victory. We'll see tonight as the Rockies play game 2 of 3 in Toronto. I believe that game is just getting underway. Now, speaking of ideas that people want to buy into, here is story number 3.
I do believe in a game that is fast, fearless, and free. So when I took one look at the Air Force motto, fly, fight, win, I thought I don't have to create a single thing here. It's already written. What the community is all about, what the academy is all about, and put it onto the court. As far as I'm concerned, if the mission of Air Force is to fly, fight, and win, that's exactly what we're going to do. Fast, fearless, free. Those are my beliefs about the game.
That is the new head coach of the Air Force men's basketball team, Joe Crispin, who met not just us lowlifes in the media, but also much more upstanding human beings like alumni, fans, and other members of the academy community. And my takeaways from his opening presser were, one, that it reinforced what I said when he got the job, which was, with everything that comes along with being a coach at the academy, wanting the job, especially with this program where they're at right now, that desire to want this job, not just because, you know, they were willing to write the biggest paycheck or they were willing to offer this, that, and the other, that you really see the challenge and want it. That doesn't guarantee you're going to be successful, but that has to be the first step. And time again today, that idea was reinforced. Joe Crispin really wants this job. He wants this challenge. He's embracing it. And I think a lot of people in that room today were won over by him because it was genuine coming from him that he wanted this job. Now, my second takeaway is that you may not be able to count on wins at Clune Arena immediately, but you will not be able to walk out of those double doors at the end of a game and not say it wasn't entertaining. The ideas that Joe Crispin laid out in that press conference today, it is going to be an aesthetically pleasing brand of basketball. It is going to be fast. It is going to be high event. There's going to be a lot going on. And that is somewhat counter to traditionally what you expect Air Force men's basketball to be. Right? Plotting, deliberate, backdoor cuts, the Princeton offense, right? This is going to be slinging the ball around, chucking up threes, pressing. He talked about the fact that his teams are going to press constantly. And he was up front. He wants to win. He desires to win as soon as possible. But the first step is being entertaining, getting you to buy in to this style of play. And I think it's going to be a fun experiment at Clune Arena here in year one under Joe Crispin. And Coach Crispin is set to join me on the show later this week, and we'll get more into his ideas for this program and where it might go. But in the meantime, I will take your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Coming up next, add that that it's like a video that's on social media that will show a young woman, and she'll be interviewed on like what's a red flag or what's an ick for a potential boyfriend, and she says something like completely out of left field that you've never heard of, and then the next thing it flashes to a notepad screen on the phone, and it's like somebody scrolling through all of these don'ts, and then they add another one to the list. Sean Payton's kind of that way. We add another thing that Sean Payton hates to the list. Coming up next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. So the annual meetings of the very important NFL people is going on right now. You heard from George Payton yesterday talking about the acquisition of Jalen Waddle and where the Broncos go from here. Today was Sean Payton's turn to speak, and we got to add another thing to the list that Sean Payton hates that you and I love.
That time of this season has been marketed right in front of every one of your eyes. What's the next word that comes after free agency from the NFL Network, from NFL.com? What is it? Frenzy. So we want it's nothing. Frenzy is what you don't want. And frenzy implies it has to happen, chaos, and it's all.
Oh, it certainly can't be self-serving, those comments. See, you love free agent frenzy. You wrong. You're being brainwashed by the corporate machine. You sheep, you drones. Free agency is not a frenzy. Like, dude, can we like, I get it. Ultimately, if the Broncos are successful, that's the most fun anyone can have with the Denver Broncos organization. Can there be a little bit more ancillary fun? Broncos coming off of a big year where they get to the AFC Championship. Now they get a chance to add to the roster and put them over the top. What is so wrong with that? And by the way, you ended up doing that. You just didn't. You did it on your own time. Because it has to be on your time, not on everyone else's time. Fine. But didn't you do the exact thing that Broncos fans were asking you to do when free agency began? You just didn't like the fact that everybody was criticizing the Denver Broncos because they weren't doing anything. So add this to the list. Momentum gone. The idea of, building off the last season, that's gone. Sean Payton hates that. He hates when you ask him about injuries. What else? I'm going to put a list together. I really am. Or I'm going to get Ray to put a list together for me. Work smarter, not harder. And I'm going to find all of these pet peeves that Sean Payton has. Oh, playoff experience. That was another one. There's like, it's a fugazi. Like, either everything we have learned and loved about football is all been a lie, or this dude can be a little bit curmudgeonly at times. Free agent frenzy. How dare you? Now, here was Sean Payton on the backlash that he received because we're all brainwashed sheep and drones by the NFL corporate machine that we want a frenzy of free agency and not a slow IV drip. Here's Sean Payton.
I know. We tune out the angst. And there was a lot of angst when we selected Bo, where we selected him. There was a lot of angst when we made quite a few of these decisions. And look, you have to tune that out. Yeah. Now, I said this in a jokingly manner. We're aware of that. Like, we understand that. And yet you cannot chase what others outside the building feel like you should be doing.
And he is right. There was angst, like teen drama angst, like Twilight Saga angst going on around the Denver Broncos with the way they started the free agent frenzy. But Sean Payton is right. As curmudgeonly as he is, as much as I roll my eyes almost to the point that they fall out of my head at some of the stuff he says, if you go beyond that, there is a wisdom there. right? Because you have to believe that the way you're doing it is the right way. When it comes to the Jalen Waddle trade that I have compared to the Nuggets back in 2021 landing Aaron Gordon. The Nuggets did the same thing. They didn't just go out and get the next guy that was available. Now, Tim Connolly presented it in a much more likable way, if I'm being honest, when he talked about we don't skip steps. Still viewed by some as a little arrogant, but I understood the wisdom in that then, and merely what I argued was the next step is to bring in a difference-making player to put you over the top. I had some different ideas than maybe Tim Connolly did. My guy, and I have brought this up, was Chris Middleton. Now, I can sit here and say that Chris Middleton would have been great for the Denver Nuggets. I in no way, shape, or form am backing off of that. But credit to Tim Connolly, he added somebody that was even better in Aaron Gordon. And the parallels between that and now, I would argue that coming off of the season the Broncos did, and with the way they have built up this team to be a contender in the AFC, that it would be within their modus operandi to go out and add something on top of what they have. Because it's not like this team has been all internal improvement year over year over year. The first few items of business when Sean Payton came in was spend a lot of money on Mike McGlinchey and Ben Powers. So it's not like spending money or taking on a big contract is so beyond what the Denver Broncos do. But I understand you have a culture. You have a locker room that you have to worry about. And I guess in some ways, maybe the Chris Middleton of this story is an A.J. Brown, where I still think that adding A.J. Brown would have been a dynamite addition to the Denver Broncos, would have made them better, was a necessary type of move for them to make because they had a clear need. But the Broncos, because they were a little bit more patient, they didn't go into the frenzy, because Sean Payton hates frenzies. They actually, to their credit, came out with an even better fit in Jalen Waddle. So it's a credit to Sean Payton and George Payton, and it's a credit to Tim Connolly with the Denver Nuggets. Did it happen as fast as anybody wanted it to? No. I think the angst was justified. And I don't think it's because NFL fans are brainwashed by the marketing firm of the NFL, the marketing arm of the NFL. You see all of these names going off the board. It was a frenzy. What is Sean Payton even talking about? It was a frenzy. I remember was I in Vegas? I was somewhere. All the hotel rooms in cities blend together after a while that I travel to. It was Vegas. Legal tampering period opens up. 10 dudes have found new teams within an hour. So it was a frenzy. Like this idea that free agency is a frenzy, it absolutely was a frenzy. But the Broncos are a little bit more patient, a little bit more deliberate. But I would say with everything else going on, the fans were right to be a little angsty about the whole thing because they saw difference makers in Kenneth Walker and Travis Etienne going off the board. They didn't see a ton of wide receiver options. A.J. Brown went from being rumored with the Broncos to no longer being rumored with the Broncos and was more Patriots, Rams-centric, which could cause some more angst because there weren't that many options to begin with. So I think the Broncos were right to do it the way they did it. And you cannot argue with the result. Like, you just can't. Could they have gotten this deal done sooner? Maybe. But I also don't think, in the absence of knowing what is going on and who George Paton is texting on a daily basis, without that information, if George Paton would have come out on the first day of free agency and said, we're not going to sign these guys because we're going to trade for Jalen Waddle, but it's going to take time. Do you think anybody would be criticizing the Broncos? They'd be like, cool, just let us know when that happens. Everybody would have been fine. Like this, I just think it comes down to, it's okay to not have, to trust but verify. Right? You don't have to have blind allegiance to an organization. You can hold them accountable. And not knowing that the Broncos were on the verge of landing Jalen Waddle, you were right to be a little angsty. But with the result, but also because it fits so well with the way that the Broncos have done this and built this thing up, you can't argue with the way that Sean and George Paton have done this. I just don't like the firing back, because it's just believe in me. Right? That's the way it comes off with Sean Payton. I am beyond questioning. And meanwhile, the funny thing is, he ends up turning over play calling duties to Davis Webb, which Broncos fans wanted him to do. And they went out and got Jalen Waddle. Why does it have to be this difficult? Why do you have to act like the people who are suggesting that Davis Webb take over play calling duties, or the Broncos go out and get a weapon for Bo Nix in the offense, are like out of their mind, and they should just be quiet and let Sean, like, you were going in that direction anyway. Why the push pull? Why the tug of war? Sean, just in the end be like, hey, we know what the fans wanted. We're giving them what they wanted. We see the same things. They're right. Because in the end, you were right. The Broncos felt like they needed a difference-making wide receiver. They felt like they needed a change for the play calling duties. But such is the Sean Payton experience, which in the end, all's well that ends well. Broncos have Jalen Waddle. Davis Webb is calling plays for Jalen Waddle, and everyone is happy, except Sean Payton, who hates free agent frenzy. 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. There was never really a good spot to fit this in today. Great conversation regarding the think piece from ESPN on the viability of LeBron James with the Denver Nuggets next year. Why he would fit. You don't think he would. That was a lively debate, much on the Avs just running through Calgary like a buzzsaw. So there was never really any spot in the show that I had to bring this up. So I'll save it for here. And because it is really cool, and it is just another way, another bullet in the chamber, so to speak, when it comes to the argument that hockey is superior to so many other sports, especially at times, and I love them both. I love basketball, love hockey. Why, when it comes down to it, hockey's better. Radko Gudas may not be a name that you are familiar with. He did help the Florida Panthers win Stanley Cups recently. So decent player, bit of a grinder, right? Depth guy. But he really kind of helped embody what those Panthers teams were all about. But valuable player. Anaheim brings him in. They have a young up-and-coming team. They add him to the mix. A little grit, a little sandpaper, as Jared Bednar would say, was exactly what Joe Quenneville needed. And you look at where the Anaheim Ducks are. They've had a very good season. They're going to be in the postseason. And I think to some degree, Radko Gudas could get a little bit of credit here. But when you're a player like Radko Gudas, there are times where you can cross a line. And he did that a few weeks back when he took a run at Maple Leaf star and Captain America for American hockey fans, Austin Matthews. Ended his year. And it was a very questionable hit. And the person who felt that more than anybody was Radko Gudas. Because last night, Radko Gudas played a game against the Toronto Maple Leafs, despite being in a walking boot. Not on the ice. That would be incredibly difficult. He's walking around in a walking boot because he has a lower body injury. I wonder what part of his body is injured since he's wearing a walking boot. But he is out with an injury. Announces to the gathered media yesterday morning that he will play. Perhaps to take a run at another Maple Leafs player? To finish what he started? No. To answer for what he did to Austin Matthews. Radko Gudas said he needs to answer for his mistakes. He acknowledged that he crossed the line with the hit on Austin Matthews. And in hockey culture, there is a way for a team to exact a measure of revenge against somebody in a physical way by fighting him. And Radko Gudas, despite having an argument, a reason, an excuse, however you want to phrase it, to not be in that game, he's hurt. He's injured. Love to be out there. Can't. Got this walking boot. Gudas said, no, I have to atone. I have to answer for this. So sure enough, Max Domi, son of a player that is very, who is given way, if you want to think of an OG in modern times for the type of player that a Radko Gudas is, or even Max Domi, I think Max is a little bit more skilled than his father, but Ty Domi is one of these players. Goon, if you want to use that word, can be a pejorative. But a guy that will not be afraid. Claude Lemieux is this for the Colorado Avalanche. Not be afraid to mix it up. Not afraid to level the big hit. Not afraid to get in a fight. But every once in a while, they'll cross the line. So last night, puck down, Max Domi, Radko Gudas dropped the gloves. And Radko Gudas does not throw a punch. Now, he protects himself. He's not going to let Max Domi hold his hands behind his back and let Max Domi deliver an uppercut. But it was a hockey fight, except it was just Gudas, tugging on the jersey a little bit of Max Domi, just making sure that he didn't get his entire face caved in. But he did not fight back because he understood that he crossed a line. And if the walking boot was on the other foot, he would want, if it was one of his teammates, he would want the ability to go after the guy that put his teammate out of commission. This is like is this like samurai culture? This is the best culture. I don't know if there's another example of this, like a warrior's code. I love this so much. But I am a proponent of hockey fights. I think there used to be a time where it was too much. We got too many of them. And we have to look back and say, as much as the Red Wings Avs were the good old days, we have to acknowledge that we have evolved as a society. There is a little bit more skill in today's game. There's a lot more money on the line. You can't have dudes just battering other guys. They're just, it's bigger business now. And maybe that means it's not better than it used to be. I think they found a nice balance. It still exists, and it exists within a few players, Radko Gudas being one. For the Avs, it used to be Curtis McDermott. Now it's kind of Gabe Landeskog. But just the idea that if you take a run at my guy, you're going to have to answer for that. And there's a way they can settle it. I don't think it's barbaric. I think it's honorable. And the fact that Radko Gudas took himself out of the walking boot and said, I'm playing tonight, and I'm answering for what I did. Reason 8,965,654 why hockey freaking rules. Want to get that in there. I just thought that was awesome. Good on Radko Gudas. This updates you on how the suddenly powerful Colorado Rockies are doing. A little bit more of a regression to the mean. It is 0-0 in the bottom of the third inning. So Rockies have not been able to, as of right now, build upon their 15-run outburst last night. But 0-0, bottom of the third, Blue Jays batting with 2 outs in the inning. Ryan Feltner is on the mound tonight for the Colorado Rockies, and they'll wrap up that series, I believe, tomorrow afternoon. And then it's opening day. To wit, did you see one of the new items on the Coors Field menu? My words will not do it justice. It is a pizza donut. And this donut, let me see if I can get I'm running out of time here. Should have planned a little bit better. Where's Ray? Ray is supposed to keep me in line on all this. So it is a pizza donut. I have it right here. Here, for those of you streaming, let me show you my phone. That is high production value. These donuts are covered in garlic butter, grated Parmesan cheese, mozzarella cheese, pepperoni, marinara sauce, pesto sauce, and Italian seasoning. And they look absolutely disgusting, if I'm being honest. I do not. I have a morbid curiosity when it comes to these menu items at baseball games. I think it is getting out of control. And I hardly find any of these menu items that seem even remotely appetizing to me. I know I am in the minority. They put these out because people like them. There are Twitter accounts dedicated to celebrating the gluttony that comes along with eating a giant pizza donut. Just not my taste. But if you are going to the home opener on Friday or going to a Rockies game at any point this season, you may not be going there for the baseball because, let's be fair, when's the last time you went to Coors Field for the baseball? You could go for the disgusting-looking pizza donut. Why did they put the pesto on there? The pesto is what makes it look worse. So enjoy that. Report back to me. I will never eat one of those. Never, ever. Appreciate your patronage. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 right here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300.